If I said you should speak English with a rhythm, some people would say, wow, but other people might say, really? So let's look at how some famous English speakers use rhythm when they speak.
Ours is a fight for the future, and ours is a fight for freedom.
Now listen again, but notice that I have put some words in bold. What happens on the bold words?
Ours is a fight for the future, and ours is a fight for freedom.
Ours is a fight for the future, and ours is a fight for freedom. Listen to her.
Ours is a fight for the future, and ours is a fight for freedom.
Did you notice that there was an equal amount of time between the words in bold? And the words in bold are the content words. They're the words with real meaning. Ours, fight, future, freedom. The words which are not in bold are the grammar words. Is, for, the. They don't have any real meaning of their own. They simply fit in between. It doesn't matter whether there's one grammar word or two grammar words or more between these stressed sounds. They still fit into the same amount of time. Listen once more.
Ours is a fight for the future, and ours is a fight for freedom.
Notice how Kamala speeds up to get the grammar words into the gaps between the content words in order to keep her rhythm. And that is what English speakers usually do when they're speaking naturally. Now we're going to look at Donald Trump. And a couple of things are different this time. First, Donald Trump will be answering a question, so it's more of a conversational style rather than a speech. Secondly, Donald Trump likes to do things differently, and that includes his speaking. He does certain things for effect, and we'll look at that in a moment. The conversation is in response to a question on the previous government's policies and what he's going to do about it. He says this.
Here, you had to pay a lot of money for the privilege of not paying for bad health care. So that was a terrible thing for people.
Now listen again. Notice there are some words in bold. What is the significance of the words in bold? Listen again.
Here, you had to pay a lot of money for the privilege of not paying for bad health care. So that was a terrible thing for people.
Now, in some places, Donald Trump uses a rhythm, and in some places he doesn't. And there's a very good reason for that. I'm going to split this into three parts. In the first part, you'll see that there's just one word highlighted in bold.
Here, you had to pay a lot of money.
It's because he's doing something called highlighting. When we highlight, we want to draw attention to one particular word above all of the others. So we will make that word stronger and all the other ones weaker, so that only that word gets the attention. And that's what he's done here. How about the next part? Well, he repeats exactly the same thing twice.
For the privilege of.
Here Donald Trump is stuttering. This is because he hasn't thought of everything he's going to say before he says it. And this is a normal feature of speech. When this happens, we don't normally keep a rhythm because we're still working out what we're going to say. Notice, though, that the content word privilege is still the stressed word, and the grammar words for, the, and of are still weakened. Now, how about the final two sentences?
For the privilege of not paying for bad health care. So that was a terrible thing for people.
And here, Donald Trump is speaking naturally. And when we speak English naturally, we normally speak with a rhythm. And we can see that there is an attempt at a rhythm between these content-stressed words in bold here.
For the privilege of not paying for bad health care. So that was a terrible thing for people.
In the first example, we nearly have a perfect rhythm through the sentence. There's a slightly longer gap with the word for than we would if we had a perfect rhythm, but this is fairly close. In the last sentence, that was a terrible thing for people. we see an equal amount of time between these stressed sounds.
So that was a terrible thing for people.
You may have noticed on the word people, Donald Trump goes down, but then slightly up at the very end of the word people. So instead of people, it's people.
So that was a terrible thing for people.
And this involves two features of English intonation. In sentences where you want to appear assertive, you normally go down towards the end. So the beginning of people is lower than terrible and thing. But as this is a conversation, Donald Trump still has more to say. And if you want to indicate to your listener that you have more to say, you'll also go slightly up on the very last word, quite often. Let's move on to a British speaker now, Keir Starmer. In a speech just before New Year, Keir Starmer said this to the British people.
It's hard to think about the future when you spend all of your time fighting to get through the week.
So, did he use rhythm? Listen again and see if there's an equal amount of time between the underlined words in the text that you can see now.
It's hard to think about the future when you spend all of your time fighting to get through the week.
Keir Starmer tries to use a rhythm throughout this part of the speech, except in one place. In the second line, he's trying to highlight the word all, and therefore he doesn't raise his tone when he says the word spend and the word time, so that he can raise his tone on all to get the impact of this word across in his speech. However, he still keeps a rhythm from the word all through to the final word week. All of your time fighting to get through the week.
When you spend all of your time fighting to get through the week. When you spend all of your time fighting to get through the week.
So we've seen two Americans and one British speaker all using rhythm in their speech, but adding in a few other features to create other effects at the same time. What about other countries, though? Well, two things to say. First of all, in countries where English is the main native language, a stress-timed rhythm, like the ones that we've seen in this video, is usually used for natural, fluent speech. However, in countries where English is one of many main languages, it can be different. Other languages may influence this rhythm. You may notice this if you listen to someone like the Indian Prime Minister. English is not his first language, and therefore when he speaks English, you'll notice that he does things that are a little bit different to the norm because of the influence of the other languages. If you want to learn more about advanced English speaking and pronunciation, you can learn lots more on my course. It contains several lessons on rhythm and other important features of English speech. You can access it through a link in the description to this video below.